Hi, Dr. H here with Family Centered Parenting. And today I want to talk about something that is really, really important in parenting, but often people get the names a little confused. And I'm talking about discipline versus punishment. Now, to some folks, well, isn't that the same? And the key is no, it's not the same. And that's one of the biggest stress points that we talk about in family-centered parenting is the difference between discipline and punishment. Now, what's similar about the two? Well, the goal of both discipline and punishment is to provide consequences for misbehavior, for an act of a child that's inappropriate to family values, if it's not a specific rule, some kind of trouble. And we want to also, hopefully through either discipline or punishment and consequences, is to prevent future misbehaviors. So that's what's similar. Now, punishment, does it have its advantages? Well, yeah, it's fast. It's quick. A little spank, deny privilege, you can't watch TV tonight, I'm taking away your cell phone, you're grounded for a week, a month, whatever. Very fast, the parent reacts and says exactly what the consequence is going to be. There's something in that. I use the word react, and that's one of the problems with punishment is that it's pure reaction and might not be thoughtful. And, to some extent, punishment may prevent future misbehavior through fear. So children, and I've heard stories from, oh yeah, my dad, if I was disrespectful, he would, take the strap to me and that would straighten me out. And you know what? I don't buy it. I don't buy that you were straightened out. I don't buy that it had no negative consequences on your views about violence, on your views about using physical force. It also robs people of their dignity when they're immediately punished. And, frankly, a lot of children respond to punishment as not that they want to change their behavior, but they learn how to hide the misbehavior better. Their motivation is, I'm not going to get caught, rather than really looking at what the behavior was, why it was a mistake, what could be done differently. So that fear and the thought of, it leads to that reaction among kids, well, what do I have to do to not get caught again, rather than change my behavior? So what are the cons about punishment? Well, it can lead to excessive physical force. I mean, sometimes we lash out when we're angry. The slap, maybe the amount of force, maybe it becomes more than a spanking. And we get into a child where we're almost borderline abusing a child, even if we don't intend to. Also, sometimes because we're in the heat of the moment, we offer a punishment that in the long run might be unenforceable. For example, we might say, you're grounded for a month. And then, wait a minute, you start thinking, they had participated in a team, they have some after school responsibilities. They can't possibly be grounded for a month. I mean, their life is too complex and too many things they need to do. So then the parent gets put in the position where I have to reverse my findings and what I was going to decide for the child. Then you go back to the child and say, well, maybe it's not a month, it's a week. You ruin your authority and you're not comfortable and the child is not comfortable. The biggest problem with punishment, it doesn't lead to any understanding of what was behind the infraction of rules or not fulfilling expectations. Also, it feels arbitrary. The consequences sometimes have little to do with the infraction. There's no tie between what they did wrong and what they're punished. You know, they did something wrong, they broke curfew, and your punishment is no TV tonight. Well, what does no TV have to do with what went behind the idea or the thought or the impulse not to honor curfew? It also can lead to negative self-image. I'm always doing something wrong. I'm getting punished. It seems unfair. It's harsh. They're mad at me. How do you feel good about yourself when you're constantly exposed to just punishment? And then there's resentment over the punishment. And sometimes that resentment leads to even more acting out. I'm not heard, I'm not respected, I'm treated this way, they didn't listen to me, I'm going to show them. And then you have even more acting out or even worse infractions. And again, when children become older, there's the defiance. You know, when you have a teenage son who's 16 years old and might be bigger than his parents, and then you're going to say, you can't leave the house. Well, frankly, if he leaves the house, how are you going to stop him? You lose your tools. You don't have that sort of coercive type of I'm bigger and stronger than you approach that comes with punishment when a child is older. And when you don't have that, what's left? And I've often talked to parents and families where the child, we punished him, he behaved most of the time. And now, as a teenager, those same tactics that the parents use to control behavior no longer work. It's not that difficult to coerce a 6 or 7-year-old. It's a lot more difficult to coerce a teenager. So let's talk about discipline. What are the advantages? Well, we start off with a different philosophy. We assume that the behavior was a choice and was need fulfilling. Wow, that's a lot. And in my book, Family-Centered Parenting, and I'll show you a copy, it's available on Amazon. In Family-Centered Parenting, I spent a lot of time on the concept of how much of human behavior is a matter of a choice to fulfill a need. Now, sometimes we make lousy choices to fulfill our needs, and it doesn't really work for us, but we've chosen that way. The need doesn't go away. We need to make a better choice. So using discipline, what we're trying to do is get our children to understand that their misbehavior was a choice to meet a need. And let's talk about a better way to meet that same need that fulfills that need to be that they have, and at the same time conforms to rules and expectations of the family. So the goal in discipline is to teach responsible behavior. How can I get my child to meet their needs in a better way? And one great advantage, it reinforces mutual respect. The child is heard, they're respected, the parent is giving them the time and attention to listen and go through a process to learn what they're doing and the parental role of teaching. So there should be a structured intervention for misbehavior, and that's one of the heart and soul of discipline. Now I have in the book what I call there's a 4 oral step or a 5 written step called the plan. And the plan, this particular goes through a process with a child to get them to a point of understanding their behavior and their choices. So the first question I ask is, what did you do or are doing? Now, we know what they were doing. You were, teasing your sister. You didn't come home on time when you were supposed to. Some other household rule or infraction. You didn't clean your room, whatever was the rule. And but you want them to own that they did it. So you ask, what did you do? I want to hear them say in their own language, I didn't come home on time. I did not call and say I'd be late. I did not clean up my room the way I anticipated I would. I didn't do my chores of taking out the trash as I'm supposed to do. I want them to begin to own what they did, and the best way to do that is to use the language of accepting and describing what they've done. The next question that I recommend asking is, what need were you trying to meet by this choice? And that implies that there was some prior teaching. And in the family-centered parenting program, in our family meeting process, we talk about teaching the child choice theory, understanding that all behavior is a choice. Choice to have control, to feel powerful, a choice to feel free, a choice for love and belonging, a choice for fun, and a choice for physical safety. So it's that behavior is always an attempt to meet one of those needs. So by asking the child that question, I want them to think about what choice they made and how it was connected to a need. Now, once we get to that point and there's an understanding, then the next question is the logical one. What are the consequences of this choice? Well, I'm sitting here having to do this, discuss it with you. I know I'm going to have to change my behavior. Things didn't work out the way I wanted them to. It's pretty easy. There are consequences. I've had, in the school environment, I have students say, what's the consequence? I have to sit here and do the stupid plan. Well, you got to do it. Otherwise, life is not going to go on. And then the next very important question, and it's not always possible, but restitution. What are you going to do to correct the harm you've done? Sometimes it's easy. Some classic restitutions, obviously, if something was broken, would they use some of their allowance? How could they repair it? That's an easy restitution. Sometimes the restitution is time. Look at the time that the parent is now involved in correcting the misbehavior is time that was lost. How is my child going to make up what I lost in the time of having to go through this discipline? There's restitution. Restitution is a key factor and it goes to some religious beliefs too, that the only way you can truly atone for your sins, the only way you can make right, I know in the 12-step program for AA, for Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, NA, one of the requirements is to revisit people you've harmed and try to make it better for what you've done. So restitution is a key piece of coming to terms with a misbehavior, something you've done wrong, an expectation you didn't meet. So we try to seek restitution. Sometimes it involves some real creativity, but we have to come up with something. And finally, the last step is a plan. How are you going to meet your needs by making a better choice? Now, the reason you defied curfew, for example, and you tied it to your need for freedom. Well, what else could we be doing as a family for you to have that sense of freedom without breaking a family rule? And that might lead to a negotiation that you might change curfew time, you might make some modification, your child might offer a suggestion, and you come up for a plan to change. That's all what discipline is. Now, I know the first reaction I get from parents, who has the time to sit and go through this every time my kid messes up? Well, the answer is by investing the time, the future will be fewer messes up. You will not have to repeat. Oh, you did that wrong, you're going to lose this privilege. You did that wrong, you get a spanking and you're upset, and okay, that's the end of that. So what we're doing is taking the time now, initially spending more time with the discipline in the hopes that in the future we'll have to spend less time because there's much more ownership of rules. We've disciplined the child. They've learned to understand the behaviors, better ways to meet their needs so they don't have to misbehave. So, yes, initially it takes more time. It requires more patience from parents. But in the long run, it's going to take less time in correcting misbehaviors, enforcing rules, chores within the life of a family. So I urge you to take a look at family-centered parenting. Look at the book. There's lots of information about discipline, exercises, on how it looks, the plan, choice theory, all of that is contained in the family-centered parenting program. So go to familycenteredparenting.com, go through our website. You'll be on YouTube to watch this video and other videos in parenting. And frankly, I hope to see you again. So take care and continue on getting the parenting journey as harmonious as possible. Thank you. Take care.